Very good evening to you. I'm Lisa Broom with the CBC Evening News. In our top story tonight, a Christchurch mother is heartbroken at the loss of her second son to gun violence. It's the first murder of the year. Kareem Smith has the details.
The first murder of 2018 has occurred just 9 days into the year. The body was discovered after a 24-hour search.
Police are at this time conducting investigations into the unnatural death of a 25-year-old Christchurch man whose body was discovered sometime around 11 a.m. this morning.
A large crowd gathered when the discovery was made. Among them, Kathy Brathwaite, who identified the slain man as her son, 25-year-old Terrence Brathwaite. It comes 7 years and 5 months after her first son was also gunned down. Ms. Brathwaite says she was first alerted on Monday by a resident that something was wrong.
Man said, "We on here?" I said, "Yeah, well." He said, "Well, I had a shooting down there, and the boy can't find Terrence. I get a pain in my stomach. Like when they get you pain, when they get you news on my first child get killed." And they went and sit on the same spot in front house and said, "Not again." Can you believe? I dream about a funeral that same time. These children all of hear when they dream. I went down here 3, 4, 5 times yesterday, all in that bush looking for my child. All they saying, one if he drop in the well, if he ran off the well out there, he ain't know he drop in the well or something.
Terrence's body was discovered hours later between some houses. Ms. Brathwaite says her son was a hard-working man whose tool of choice was a weed whacker. He also loved to ride bikes and was saving to buy one.
You don't hear nobody saying that boy wasn't a bad boy, because he wasn't a bad boy. You know, even little rambunctious would tell you some of those things that don't want to hear, but that's just how children is. You understand? But he was not a bad child. You understand? He ain't deserve this. If he'd have run about shooting more people and this happened, well, I would say, well, okay. But he don't do this thing.
The Silver Hill area has been in the media for a string of murders which occurred last year and even prompted a walkthrough by police in late August. Gun violence has taken 2 of her sons, and Ms. Brathwaite is calling for an end to it.
It's pure pain. But we as mothers gotta go through these things all the time, month after month. They hold up for a month or 2, then they start back. "Oh, you kill my dog, I kill your cat. Your cat ain't care about, no, your dog ain't care about, everybody dead." What's St. Mac?
Along with his mother, Terrence leaves 3 sisters to mourn, one of them living in Canada. Kareem Smith, CBC News.
Thanks, Kareem. Well, a man is nursing a gunshot wound to the leg following a robbery during the blackout in St. Philip last night. He has been identified as 22-year-old Chad Wright of Manderley Gardens in St. Philip. Police say that around 10 minutes past 9 last night, Wright was in the area liming with 2 other men when they were approached by 3 men, 2 of whom were armed. The bandits searched the men, robbing and shooting Wright in the left foot in the process before fleeing the scene. His cell phone and an undisclosed sum of money were taken. Lawmen are asking anyone who can provide information to assist with the investigation to contact the nearest police station or Crime Stoppers at 1-800-TIPS. That is 1-800-8477. In other news now, the Ministry of Health says it is investigating 35 suspected cases of gastroenteritis on the South Coast. Acting Chief Medical Officer Dr. Kenneth George says the majority of cases occurred over Christmas and Old Year's. The last report was a single case on January 3rd. Now, Dr. George says the outbreak has not been linked to any particular food or beverage. He adds that investigations so far suggest the cause is likely to be viral in nature and that no organisms have been identified through laboratory testing. He has also appealed to private doctors to report all cases of suspected gastroenteritis to the ministry. Meanwhile, Chief Environmental Health Officer Francina Bascom says the Environmental Health Department has increased the number of officers assigned to the area impacted by the sewage problems to 15. The team has stepped up inspection of food businesses as well as increased its mosquito control activities. It has also widened the area of coverage to stretch from the Top Rock roundabout to Hastings. A fault on a protective device called a switch gear at the Sewell generating substation has been identified as one of the reasons behind yesterday's power outage. Managing Director of the Barbados Light and Power, Roger Blackman, says work and investigations are continuing at the site.
devices, we experienced a cascading event and an island-wide outage. The 4 generator stations are electrically interconnected, and what happens when you have a fault so close to one of the generating stations, particularly on protective devices like the switchgear that failed in this instance, is that you create instability on the system, and you can have a cascading event like the one we experienced yesterday. Having said that, part of the investigation that we're doing right now includes having a look at the protective systems that we have in place adjacent to that particular device.
Meanwhile, Mr. Blackman expects operations will soon return to normal at the Christchurch site.
So far, we have one of the 4 generating units at that site back in service. We expect to have a 2nd unit back today, and the 3rd and 4th units would be contingent on what we find when we do the full inspection on the damaged equipment.
At least a dozen employees of the Treasury building in Bridgetown walked off the job today. The workers, who are from the Treasury Department, say they have had to put up with an unpleasant odor for several weeks. Lisa Lord has more.
This was the scene outside the Treasury building in Bridgetown. Workers had to rush to the aid of this woman, who was so strongly affected by the odor that she started to wheeze. Moments earlier, another employee had to be assisted after she was overcome by a sudden coughing fit. Spokesperson for the group, Juanita Cordell, says these are just a few of the health challenges employees have been battling for more than a month.
For the last 6, could be possibly 8 weeks, we've been having these problems with runny eyes, burning nose, sore throat. Some persons have been having to go to the doctor because they have tightness in the chest. They were never asthmatic. They develop asthma, they develop sinus problems. Some persons have been literally coughing up mucus along with blood, and it kind of get very scary, and in the last week or so, it have increased.
When CBC ventured into the space occupied by the Treasury Department, no cashiers were on the job, and at least one employee was seen working with a face mask. Ms. Cordell says management has been made aware of the problem, but despite complaints from customers and workers, it appears that little has been done to fix the problem.
We've been reporting it to the Accountant General. We were told that environmental persons would have come in as well as labor persons to detect and do air quality testing. So far, we have heard nothing.
CBC was advised that head of the department, Accountant General Dane Coppin, is on leave. Attempts to get a comment from his deputy were unsuccessful. Lisa Lord, CBC News.
Lisa, thanks. The Congress of Trade Unions and Staff Associations of Barbados, or C2SAB, has congratulated Her Excellency Dame Sandra Mason on her elevation to office as the 8th Governor-General of Barbados. In a statement, General Secretary Dennis DePisa says the umbrella body is confident that at the end of her tenure, Dame Sandra, like her predecessors, will leave an indelible mark on how she discharges her role and functions as the island's head of state. The Congress acknowledges that Dame Sandra comes to the distinguished office with an impeccable track record of service. Mr. DePisa pointed out that as a trendsetter, she was the first woman to serve on the Barbados Court of Appeals and the first Barbadian appointed to membership in the Commonwealth Secretariat Arbitral Tribunal. He says C2SAB compliments Dame Sandra on being appointed as the 2nd female head of state, as well as the youngest holder of the office of Governor-General of Barbados. The Barbados Water Authority is advising Barbadians that due to the island-wide power outage last night, parts of the island are still without water. The BWA says levels at some of the pumping stations and reservoirs are low and will take some time to replenish. It says in the meantime, tankers have been dispatched to emergency services and schools first. The utility company says delays can be expected due to widespread outage, and it wishes to thank the public for its patience and understanding. Well, now joining us live to discuss some of the issues facing the BWA is General Manager Keith Roy Halliday. Mr. Halliday, welcome. Happy New Year, first of all.
Thank you, Lisa. Happy New Year as well.
Thank you, and thanks for joining us. Now, Mr. Halliday, let's start where we ended just now, the outage. Can you tell us which areas are still being affected and how soon possibly they can expect to be restored?
Whenever we have outages, electrical outages, particularly island-wide outages, our entire distribution system is typically affected, and it takes really, in an instance like this, maybe about 24 hours to 48 hours for us to get back up to full capacity. At the moment, we still have some elevated regions, elevated areas that are without water, but by and large, most areas are now with water.
And how exactly did the electrical outage cause the BWA system to go down?
Once we have a shortage or electrical outage, the system shut down automatically. They are not equipped with generative capacity. We have maybe about two or three stations that have specific capacity like that, but it's still manually controlled. Principally, we do that because of a security issue and to protect the systems. So we in the habit, once this happens, we go around to each of our stations or substations and we turn back on those systems manually, provided we have done the physical checks to make sure none of the equipment is damaged. If we were to put it on automatic restart, then there's a fear that we could damage the shroud or the pump or the VFDs or any of the electrical components. And given that, we always make sure that we do manual restarts.
Okay, fine. So now let's turn our attention to what is the hot button issue of the day, the South Coast Sewage Project, the problems there and how you're going about fixing it. Now, the latest thing that we've heard is about a shutdown from midnight tonight until 4 a.m. along Highway 7. So tell us what is expected to happen
specifically from the Gemins Lane area up to Carter's Gap.
Yes.
What we're doing really, we're taking advantage of a limited time window as we see it. So over the last several weeks, we have been implementing a number of mitigated measures designed really in the first instance to stop or to slow the overflows that we've been experiencing on the South Coast. And one of those would have included the 10-inch pump, which we were using as a substitute or as a backup for the screw lifts. The other one would have been the bay lift station, the diversion that we would have had in that respect. We've also had implemented the bypass system, and then a number of other smaller measures we've been pursuing, including taking some of the heavier users offline. What we have seen over the last 2 days, finally, is a fair measure of success in that regard. The roads have been completely dry because all of the mitigating measures that we put in place are working and are working in tandem with each other. There are still risk factors involved in the sense that if one or several of those mitigating measures fall or do not work or cease working, that we may have some seepage. But at the moment, we have them under control. We're able to manage what we call the balancing of the levels at the plant and in the system. And in as much as we've managed to pull those levels down sufficiently, we want to now move to the second stage of the first stage, or the second step of the first stage, which is about dealing with the blockage.
Right.
We can only do that by examining what we have on the ground, and to do that we need to do a visual inspection, and that means using CCTVs. So to ensure maximum success, what we're doing, we're turning off the potable water side. It's distinct and quite separate from the wastewater sewer line.
And the potable water is what you would drink?
Correct.
Or what you use?
The drinking water.
Right.
But the reason we have to turn it off, because all of the water that goes into any household basically ends up as either grey water or wastewater, which means it ends up into the sewage line. We need to keep the sewage line as clear as we possibly can. And one way to do that, and it's a sacrifice, and we're asking Barbadians to work with us on this, is to turn off the potable water side so that we can lessen the incidence of water that gets thrown into or finds its way into the sewage line. Once we can do that, about an hour after we turn off the potable water side and the levels have dropped, and we know that some of the lines are clear, we'll be able to go into the sewage line with the CCTV and see exactly what's going on. We need to do this. This really allows us then to get enough information to be able to deal with the blockage. We cannot risk dealing with the blockage unless we can see exactly what's happening. To minimize disruption, to minimize the damage, to minimize the cost of repair. You have to remember that the carrier line which carries the sewage line both the sanitary or the influent and the force main or the effluent is about 15 feet on the ground and under the water table. So we must proceed with caution.
Could you tell us where exactly along that stretch is where you suspect the blockage is?
The blockage is between what we know as the old Nova Scotia property and the bird sanctuary. There is a breach as well on the effluent line, which is closer to the old sanctuary, but the blockage that we're seeking to address will be just past the old Scotiabank building.
Okay. And is it correct that 2 pumps for the South Coast plant are on their way into Barbados? That's expected to be added to the mitigating measures?
Well, we've had a number of pumps that have been on order. Recently, we actually received 3 pumps. We received what we call 3 auxiliary pumps, a 10-inch pump, which is the one with a larger capacity, which is the one that's at the plant right now. We also have 2 6-inch pumps, trash pumps. One is at the Old Scotia Bank, which is a system with the bypass, and the second one is now on standby for the 10-inch. You recall when we first started this measure, we actually received some measure of success that Saturday just before Christmas. And for about 6 to 8 hours, the levels had dropped. We started to see the roads drying. But then because of stuff in the system, rags, whatever the case may be, those pumps shut down. So we've finally gotten to the stage where we've created baskets, we've repaired the pump, we have modified the access in the influent chamber in terms of where the inlet for that pump goes, and based on that we believe we should be able to maintain it. There's a deragging schedule of course in place. Outside of that, we also had an additional 2 pumps on order. As you could appreciate, we need to have backups. So when those pumps arrive, they will serve as additional backups.
Now, you talked about some of the things that go into the system that cause the problems in the first place. I know that you've had a campaign to get people to stop putting some of these offending materials. Have Barbadians been listening? Have you seen a reduction in some of the things going into the system?
It's hard to say, but I think based on what we've seen recently, there is an awareness, an increase in awareness by Barbadians. I think that there is less incidents, but there's still too much. We're meeting with BHTA and a number of the key stakeholders or constituents as well. We want to address that with them. One of the things we've noticed, for instance, and not allowing blame or portioning blame to anyone, but one of the things we've discovered, for instance, is that in some hotel rooms, there is no provision for a sanitary bin. But we know of our own, we need to step up the awareness and education campaign. Folks who have gone on the sewage line over the years are not aware of how the sewage should be used. So there are certain types of people that should not be put into the sewer. Sanitary napkins, condoms, you name it. There are many extraneous material that finds its way into the sewer system, and that really, because they do not degrade, that really creates a problem for us.
All right, so final question. Has the BWA seen any litigation as a result of the South Coast sewage problems?
Not specifically at the moment, but we are aware of some issues in that regard. We're very, very sensitive to what the impact of this has been. We're also sensitive to the fact that we're working with a system that in the first instance was not the best design. It has some flaws, it has aged, and it's not just a question of maintenance, it's not just a question of illicit material going into it, it's not just a question of funding. There are a number of contributing factors that's led to the situation where we are, and has created the liabilities that we see or sense that are on the horizon. So we are concerned.
And you're optimistic about getting a handle on this problem?
I think we are. We were really hoping to be at this stage just before Christmas. We're finally at this stage now, having put into effect a number of other mitigation measures, and we believe we can maintain it. And if we can get our CCTV to work the way we hoped it will, we should be able to move to the next phase. So we're fairly optimistic at this stage.
General Manager of the Barbados Water Authority, Keith Roy Halliday, updating us on the South Coast sewage issue and some other issues facing the Barbados Water Authority. Thank you very much for joining us. And we'll be right back after this break with more news. Stay tuned.
The rector and members of the St. Peter's Parish Church, under the distinguished patronage of Mrs. Regine Sixt, Honorary Consul of Barbados, present Spring into Summer, a flower show and garden festival, January 12th to 16th. Friday, January 12th, The official opening and preview from 6 p.m., admission $50. And the festival recital at 8 p.m., admission $25. On Saturday 13th, viewing of flowers at 9 a.m. and the Garden Festival at 2 p.m., featuring the Royal Barbados Police Force Band and others, admission $20. Afternoon tea on Saturday and Sunday, admission $10. Sunday 14th, festival luncheon at 12 noon, admission $50. And floral fusion by international designers at 5:30 p.m., admission $20. January 15th and 16th, viewing of flowers from 10 a.m. Evening jazz on Monday featuring Roger Giddens and others, admission $15. Season tickets available at $75.
CBC congratulates our new Governor General, Dame Sandra Mason.
Almost a year has passed since a quiet St. Michael community lost one of its own to a fatal dog attack. With the anniversary of that sad event just weeks away, CBC returned to MONROE Road, Haggett Hall to see how residents are coping. Ryan Broom has more.
This T-shirt on a pole near her former home reminds passers-by of the tragic events which unfolded on January 28, 2017. That was the day when 74-year-old Verona Lolita Gibson was attacked and killed by a pack of dogs in the wee hours of the morning just a short distance from her home. As the anniversary date approaches, the tragic events of that day still remain very fresh in the memories of some residents.
Today I was talking in the bus with the driver about her. She's a very cool, nice lady. But Lord knows the way and He knows what happened.
During her funeral service at the St. Barnabas Anglican Church, where she was a devoted member, Miss Gibson was remembered as a woman of few words, who freely gave to others, a sentiment echoed by neighbors.
She's a nice person, and she's shout you and give you anything if she see you.
Miss Gibson was also remembered by her son, Roger Beckles, as one who loved gardening. However, the kitchen garden she once tended to so lovingly has now been overrun by weeds while her home sits unoccupied. Gibson's death sparked national outrage, with many calling for a ban on dogs such as pit bulls. There was also a significant rise in the number of pet owners venturing to the Animal Control Center in Blackrock to license their dogs. But one neighbor who spoke to CBC off camera does not believe that licenses are the answer to a problem he says has been ongoing for many years.
You call on you to license the dog, and if you license it, you license it, and that don't stop the dog from popping the leash and killing somebody. No, it don't stop the dogs from pulling down somebody, peeling, as I know what they've done, and destroy hundreds and hundreds of dollars a sheep. You know, and that's been going on for as long as I've been around.
Last February, the Ministry of Health had announced possible amendments to the legislation related to the care of dogs. Ryan Broom, CBC News.
Thanks, Ryan. Well, time after time, we're bombarded by some song or dance or even a hairstyle that's all the rage, only for it to be forgotten about a short while later. Now, one local dance group has shown that it's anything but a passing trend, as it observes 25 years in the business. Now, that group is none other than Dance in Africa. And creative director Jennifer Seeley says the group's focus is now on the way forward. Sharika Griffith has this story.
What started out as a few untrained lovers of dance in April of '92 has blossomed into a force to be reckoned with in the performing arts. Mere months after its inception, Dance in Africa was welcomed into the hearts of Barbadians when the group first appeared at the National Independence Festival of Creative Arts, or NIFCA.
That's why NIFCA means so much to this group 25 years after, because people became familiar, people began to look forward to what the repertoire would have been.
But even after observing its silver anniversary, creative director Jennifer Seeley says space and adequate funding continue to be two of the group's major issues. So too is the continuation of the group's legacy.
That has always been what has bothered me. And I can say that I am seeing recently where the dancers have come forward and they are taking their roles specifically towards the leadership of tomorrow.
And so Miss Seeley has begun grooming some of the senior members of the group to take the helm when she inevitably bows out, although she's showing no signs of slowing down anytime soon. Stacey Williams, Akima Bostic-White, and Len Callender are three of those young women who have shown strong leadership skills. Many of these qualities, Len says she learned from her involvement with the group.
Has really developed my time management and my discipline, also my motivation and just commitment to anything that I really try to put my mind to. Also being aware of your body as a young girl growing up and being comfortable and being sociable and interacting with many people as you go to different performances, as you meet other dancers, other people in the fraternity. You definitely became more rounded.
With new leadership comes the expectation of new concepts and approaches.
I have a lot of things that I would like to see happening in the group in terms of development, so I really do not mind taking the group to that other level in the future in terms of the sustainability of the group, making sure that it grows, constantly, that Miss Seeley can count on seniors and the parents of seniors, to help her to take the group to levels beyond what she could even imagine.
And so these young women have begun to identify areas they'd like to see changes in. Stacey looks forward to the day when the group no longer has to rent that space because it has a home of its own.
I think that would help facilitate the creative process more. You don't have to be out by a certain time, or I think we would just get more done that way. And having our own space as well, we could also have the opportunity to possibly display some of the costumes that we have amassed over the years.
Inspired by others at Carry Festa 13, she would also like for some of the group's members to come up with their own dance techniques.
Some of the other islands, when they brought their works, it was based on techniques they would have created, and I would like to see that not only for Barbados, but being a little selfish, I would like to see that coming from Dance in Africa.
As for the continuation of the group's legacy, that has already begun, as Akima's daughter is now one of the younger members of Dance in Africa.
Sometimes she would say, well, Mommy, I don't think I want to dance anymore. And although my heart would drop to my knees, I would, say, are you sure? Why? What happened? And usually it's just because she doesn't feel like going to dancing on that particular day. So it's fine. But I will try not to, push her or force her, let her do what she wants to do. But so far, she really loves it. She really loves the group. And she's doing well. She's doing well.
As the group continues to build on its successes over the last quarter century, here's to 25 more. Sharika Griffith, CBC News.
Thank you, Sharika. Still to come, a look at some of the stories making headlines across the region.
New on Morning Barbados.
I know I'm ready to hit the spot, and I'm bringing along a friend.
This one is sure to hit the spot. Fridays on Morning Barbados. See you at 6.
This is Seth at Selberville, musician and comedian.
Hi, I'm Nadia Phillips, comedian and entertainer. The Barbados Vagrants and Homeless Society is doing a great thing, and we need your help as well, Barbados.
Come together as one and give to the Barbados Vagrants and Homeless Society by simply donating anything you got. Trust me, families, help the homeless.
Former President of Trinidad and Tobago, George Maxwell Richards, has died. He passed away last night around 7:43 from a heart attack. Reports are that Richards, who served as the country's 4th president from 2003 to 2013, was not feeling well around noon, following which his wife and daughter took him to the hospital. There, doctors discovered that the 86-year-old had an unusual heartbeat. He was advised that he should install a pacemaker to regulate his heartbeat. His death came hours after the opposition threw their support behind the government's presidential nominee, Paula Mae Weeks, as the country's 6th and 1st female president. Over to St. Lucia, the National Youth Council is concerned about the social ills affecting young people, in particular gun violence and suicide. Council members say they will continue discussions with the relevant authorities on possible solutions to these problems.
The National Youth Council, NYC, is troubled by the recent spate of violence in St. Lucia. Crime was up overall in 2017, which was capped off by a record 60 homicides. Most of the homicides resulted from gun violence. The NYC president wants tougher laws to protect the ports and borders.
Most of those crimes, based on police reports, are gun-related, and the NYC would like to let the authorities know that we think something needs to be done in terms of stricter guarding of our ports of entry on the island. A lot of those guns and ammunition would be coming through our ports, and we think that if this importation route is stifled, that is one of the routes, or that is one of the ways in which we can actually work towards alleviating this issue.
The suicide rate among the youth is another cause of concern.
It should not be a continuous discussion only, but we need to sit down and put some initiatives in place that can work towards alleviating such issues in our country. It is also obvious that we have a very serious suicide issue in our country as well. The suicide figures for last year were very high, and whilst many persons are not aware, we would like to let them know that there is actually a suicide helpline, which is 203, and we urge persons who feel that they may be stressed or they may be, in any situation where they're having suicide thoughts to call the helpline.
Seabourn Airlines, which services a number of countries and territories in the Eastern Caribbean, is being sold. The company is being sold to United States-based airline Silver Airways. Seabourn says the airline is being sold because of financial strain caused by Hurricanes Irma and Maria. Now, most of the countries the airline serves, such as Puerto Rico, the British and U.S. Virgin Islands, Dominica and St. Martin, were significantly impacted by the Category 5 hurricanes. Seabourn assured its day-to-day operations will continue as normal and will not be disrupted by the sale. Well, sports news is just ahead, but first, here is a tip from Cooperators General Insurance.
This tip of the day is brought to you by Cooperators General Insurance Company Limited. Insurance the way you want it to be.
Don't have landscaping that will provide cover or hiding places. This crime prevention tip is brought to you in association with the Royal Barbados Police Force.